Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and it is my distinct pleasure to have Kimberly Klein with us today. Kimberly Klein was raised in Southern California. She graduated from the University of California, Santa Barbara with a BA in political science with an emphasis in international relations. She then earned her Juris Doctor degree and was admitted to the California State Bar. She began working with her then husband, Michael, in real estate investments and their high-tech companies. After giving birth to their daughter, Talia, Kim became a stay-at-home mom and devoted all of her time to raising her only child. But all of that changed for Kim when on December 23rd, 2007, the small private plane carrying then 13-year-old Talia, her father, and her friend crashed into the side of a volcano in Panama, killing Talia and her dad. Kim's heart and her entire belief system were shattered. Her work then became the impossible journey of healing from grief after such a devastating loss. From the moment she received that first palpable tap on her wrist from Talia, she learned that life continues beyond death. Thus, her lifelong journey of healing, learning, and spiritual awakening began. After years of intense healings herself, along with much communication from Talia, Kim was able to transform her experience from one of insurmountable tragedy to one of triumph. She shifted her motherly devotion from raising Talia to communicating with her in the afterlife, which has brought her great peace. Kim has also become passionate about helping others heal from the grief of losing a loved one. She now combines her academic and real-world educations with her experiences of spiritual awakening and knowledge to write and to guide others in their life struggles and healing from loss. I happen to have her 3 books right here. The Universe Speaks. The Universe Speaks, Heavenly Dialogue, Book 2, and Hummingbirds Don't Fly in the Rain. Kim, it's so great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So let's first of all share more, if you would, about how you went from agnostic to connected and how this tragic situation that you went through changed everything in eventually, it was zooming out far enough, a positive way.
They say that there's 2 ways to break through to become a believer or spiritual. Either a lot of intense work, learning, meditating, trying, or an instantaneous shattering. And so, unfortunately, I had the instantaneous shattering. My entire life, I was agnostic. I always wanted to believe there was something more than just our existence here. And I was always searching and reading, and I did go to psychics and things like that. But I never was able to truly believe in a God or some sort of controlling power. Then skip ahead to the plane crash, to after we found out that my daughter and her dad actually did die in the plane crash. Instantaneously, I physically was touched by my daughter. There was no doubt about it. I had a squeeze on my wrist, and at that moment, the phone rang, and I was in Panama, and it was a friend of mine telling me that she spoke to a medium who said, Talia wants you to get something from her wrist. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then my phone, it was call waiting. It was the psychic. She said, Talia wants you to get her bracelet. And I was blown away. From that moment on, I was completely open and a true deep believer in the afterlife, spirit communications, the reality of what actually happens after you die. Because Talia was squeezing my wrist at the exact moment that I was told she wants me to get something off of her wrist. And it was a very special bracelet that I had given her for Mother's Day, basically as a I love you, thank you for making me a mother present. And so there was no doubt in my mind. I felt that feeling, it was tight, and I got the message. And from that moment on, I have been completely open. And that shattering of my previous disbelief to giving me a belief, that started my healing basically instantaneously. I mean, it's not like I didn't have sadness and grief and trauma, and I wasn't completely traumatized over the situation. I still am, but I have my relationship with her still, and it's ongoing, It's not fantasy. It's real conversations, mostly between other people as mediums, like Laura, the pet psychic, my friend. But I do hear her myself. And that is the most healing thing that can happen. And that is what I want to accomplish with the rest of my life, helping other people understand truth and that they don't lose their loved ones.
Yeah. And you mentioned Laura, that's Laura Stinchfield, who was a guest on this podcast. And that's one of my favorite episodes. We're 300 and some episodes into this podcast, and it is one of my top 10 favorites. And so she's a very special person and has incredible gifts. And I just loved that conversation. It was just powerful.
Having myself the belief that there's afterlife and spirit communications, initially I wasn't actually able to hear or understand what I was feeling other than that wrist squeeze. Laura saved my life. I mean, if it wasn't for her communications with Talia instantaneously, she actually did open me up on a grander scale and helped me heal. And I think a lot of people who don't believe, they don't know what they're feeling, and they don't know what they're actually thinking, and that it's coming from their loved one. It really helps to have someone you can go to that can help you break through.
Yeah. How do you, first of all, communicate with Talia directly without an intermediary psychic? Are you hearing? Are you getting a kind of a knowing, claircognizance, telepathy sort of message? Or are you seeing images? Like how does that work for you?
I get feelings and I get knowings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear her voice as her voice like Laura or some other mediums do. But feelings are very real. And thoughts, the thoughts come, and when they come in from her or from her father, I just know that it's not me, because different people think differently and they word things differently. And all of a sudden you'll get a thought. I'll go, that's a good idea, but it wasn't my idea. Or I love you too. It's a reaction that's with the heart that doesn't need to come out vocally. And so I hear with feelings and with thoughts.
Yeah. Now, do you hear those thoughts in your own voice? In your internal
Sometimes
voice?
yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes yes, which is very confusing. Years ago, when I first started learning what I was feeling, hearing, interpreting from spirit, I was confused. It's very confusing when you don't know. You think it's yourself. You think, I'm making this up. In fact, a lot of people that don't believe, they think you're making it up. They think, okay, you're wishing that you're hearing your loved one. And so you're hearing what they would say, but you're not hearing it at all. It's you making it up. And if that helps you get through the grief, okay. But it takes time to build the confidence up to know that really, even though I hear my voice in my head, it's their thought. And sometimes it's not my voice. Sometimes it's just a thought that has no voice. And I can actually have a physical feeling in my head. It's like I feel the thought and I have the thought. But the big challenge is knowing that is actually their thought. Mm-hmm. That takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you can get tricked. I've found this through a hard experience, like a very painful learning lesson where I thought, oh, this is my guide, or one of my guides speaking to me. So I'll do what they recommend. And then it wasn't of the light. I didn't ask, I wasn't discerning. This was last year when I was early in the awakening journey, and I did what was recommended, and it blew up, and it's still a horrible, horrible mess. So, you gotta be discerning about who you're listening to and confirm that it's of the light and it's who you think it is or who they're saying.
I think that's part of my journey. Well, I know it was part of my journey, learning first protection. You need to have protection, spiritual protection from the spirit world that's not good. and that is, maybe it's not bad, but it's not who you're looking to hear from. And to know, okay, I need to have the protection. And the protection, you can learn how to build a protection, sending out your energy in a protective bubble. There's a lot of different ways. A lot of people teach that. But when in doubt, I'll always go to a second, meaning I'll call Laura and I'll say, I kind of picked this up, but I'm not so sure. And so we'll confirm it. And Talia will say, yes, that was me, or it was kind of me. Because spirits are, it's interesting because they meld. It's like the spirit world. You can have a spirit that echoes your legitimate spirit. And so you think you're hearing that person and it is their voice, but it's somehow manipulated by another spirit that doesn't have the same good intentions. And so I always to this day, I still, if it's important, I'll go to Laura and I'll say, I need to confirm this. Mm-hmm. I think trusting yourself is very difficult when it's someone you love. If it's a person that I don't know, or a spirit that is not related to me, that if I pick up some energy or some thought, I don't doubt. When it's a person that I love, like my daughter or her father or another person in my family, I doubt, because there's a filter, because we want the filter in our heads. We want it to be our loved ones, and we want to have certain answers, and we're hoping they're going to give us the answers that we want, but we don't always get the answers that we want. We will get real answers, but right there, it gets confusing. Is it the real answer, or am I manipulating this answer in my head?
Yeah. So when it's an emotionally charged situation or communication, then it mucks up the channel of communication. It can break the communication, or it can mutate it, and so you got to just come from a place of no thing, nobody, nowhere, no time, like Dr. Joe Dispenza explains, where it's just unemotional. You're just an observer, the observer, and that is a way to boost the signal and to eliminate interference and manipulation of the messages. It's part of the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like having a filter that's dirty, and it's dirty with your own emotions. Yeah. When people say, oh, I need to get rid of my garbage, it's really not garbage. It's just emotions that when you're dealing with your loved ones in the spirit. And I still don't pick up to the level that I really want to pick up. And I know it's because even though I think that I've been healed and I think that I'm over the grief, it's still there. There's always going to be that bit of grief that is still putting a slight filter on, which is why I always confirm something important with someone else.
Right.
But I think that's the hardest part, why people poo-poo it, or they say, no, it's not real, is because of that filter. They don't know how to break through, and it's very hard to learn that, how to decipher your thoughts versus someone else's.
Yeah. It's the first time I had this experience of hearing the communication in my own voice, in my inner voice, and then responding in kind, just telepathically, and hearing that in my own voice as well, and then having this back and forth conversation. That was a little discombobulating. I was like, whoa, this is wild. And then I saw a Netflix show called Manifest, where the callings were coming in their own voices, because everybody was psychic after this plane flight. That I don't want to give too many spoiler alerts if you want to, I don't want to give too many spoilers here if somebody's thinking of watching that show. But hearing the person's own voice give the message of the calling of the mission, or the whatever, is something that happens a lot, and I did not know that until I started receiving, which was just last year. I mean, I didn't know I was psychic until last year, when I had the big awakening after praying to God to give me a job, and he answered immediately. So Yeah, I never thought of myself as
Wow.
psychic, but then everybody is psychic, which is pretty mind blowing. Everyone is psychic. It's just we have shut the door or tuned out because of disbelief, unbelief, or disconnection. And it's all there waiting
Mm-hmm.
for us. Yep.
Exactly. Or in some cases, people have been taught that it's not true, or or depending on how they're raised, the doors get shut and locked up.
Yeah.
The That's the really very difficult to crack. When my daughter first passed, and I felt her, but I wasn't at the point where I was hearing her thoughts myself. I went to a grief group, a woman's grief group. I didn't really want to, but I did it because a friend said, let's go to this and see what it's like. And there was a few other elderly women, much older than me, who had lost loved ones years prior, 20, 25 years. I was the newest person. And when I was done with that meeting, I was more traumatized than when I went in, because I felt so bad for these women. All of them were raised in such a way where they didn't believe in spirit communications, or they thought it was evil, or they doubted if they did hear something, they thought they were hearing it themselves from their own mind. And they sort of thought I was a little bit weird because I wasn't as grieving as they were, and it was still so new. But I wasn't, because I still heard from her.
Yeah. You got a
And then
without
I
a doubt
left
sign. A without a doubt
without a
sign.
doubt.
Yeah.
And I've had without a doubts from that moment on. And I felt so bad for those women. I just felt horrible, because the thought of going on for 25 years plus with that much grief is just, they could get, sick and diseases. It's just, it's horrible. I feel really bad for them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why I want to help as many people confirm. Like when I am out with my books at some sort of an event, some people will come up and say, I kind of hear this, and I feel it sort of here in my body. Do you think that's my loved one? And I say, absolutely. And what you should do, acknowledge it. If you acknowledge that you're feeling it and hearing it, and ask them to keep doing it, and don't doubt, and don't let people tell you that you're crazy, because you will hear more.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Well, one thing I learned from Karen Noe, a famous psychic who I had on the podcast a year ago, she said to ask for a without a doubt sign.
Mm-hmm.
By asking, then it is given, right? So if you don't ask, then good luck. But ask,
Yeah.
and then if you leave it open-ended as far as what the without a doubt sign could be, then it could show up as feathers. Just everywhere you go, there are feathers on the ground, and that happened to a friend, where she started receiving feathers everywhere from her husband who had passed. Another example, a staff person on my team, she had a conversation with her mom who had passed in the car, and she was driving by herself, but her mom was there, and she felt it. She knew it, but she said, "Can I have a without a doubt sign?" And then she turns the corner, and right there in the middle of the road is an owl staring her down.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's fascinating.
yeah.
Especially because it was an owl. The thing about, I'm going to jump into signs and omens and things for a second because of the owl.
Yeah.
A lot of people read books, and a certain book will say, no doubt about it, if you see an owl, somebody's going to die. If you see this, it means this. But I don't follow that belief. I feel that, and I've gone to a lot of spiritual teachers, well, a lot of classes. I feel that signs are personalized. So if you see an owl, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to die. For her, the owl represented, if it's out of context, there shouldn't be an owl. So something out of context, yes, it was a sign for sure.
Right.
If you're walking through the forest and there's owls everywhere, seeing another owl will mean nothing. But seeing an owl is a sign that this is out of context and it's unusual. So yes,
Yes,
that's an
and its
answer.
behavior was unusual. It just stared her down for 5 to 10 minutes. She sent me
Okay,
a
that's
video of it.
amazing.
Yeah. So it was a without a doubt sign. Like she had no doubt that this was anyone else or any other situation other than her mom temporarily taking over the body of an owl to give her that sign. Like we've seen probably plenty of videos on Facebook or YouTube where say a cardinal is flying and lands on a lady's shoulder. Well, the mom of the lady saying, "I'm going to come back as a bird or as a cardinal specifically to give you a sign that I made it to the other side." And then you see this video, and the behavior of that cardinal is so out of the ordinary
Right.
that it doesn't leave anything to the imagination. And then I remember this one video where the lady like, okay, you can go now, and she kind of moves her shoulder to get the bird to fly away, and it just comes right back and lands again.
I saw that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll include
It's
a link to
amazing.
that video in the show notes for this episode. But yeah, it's like you just need the lack of ambiguity by making the request. Say, please give me a without a doubt sign. And
Exactly. I have so many of those. They, you still want confirmation. Here I am 14 years out, and I still want confirmation because it just feels good. It makes you, it just touches your heart. It's a close communication.
yeah,
There was a time in the very beginning, pennies that people say spirits leave pennies and coins.
right.
So my daughter was leaving pennies, but then I said, why don't you leave something bigger? The pennies, I'm not so sure that that's you. So will you leave, a larger coin? I came home, and in my planter, there was a plant on my desk. In the dirt on my desk was a dime. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. That's amazing. And then I jokingly said, well, let's make them $100 bills. And that was just a joke. But then I said, okay, so how about we go to quarters? A few days later, I was getting out of my car. And as I stepped out of the car, there was a few quarters on the ground right where I was stepping. And people could say, oh, yeah, well, you pulled in a parking spot, someone lost their change. It doesn't matter. I was led to that spot. The quarters were there after I requested it, after I requested larger than pennies. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
To this day, I love getting signs. It's like an I love you.
Right. And you can as you say, up level or increase the signal on these signs or messages so that it gets even clearer to you that this is from your loved one. This is from the other side of the veil. Like, for example, something that happened to me that left no doubt that this is a magical universe that we live in. I received some intuitive breadcrumbs that I followed that led me to a particular psychic, and this was early in my journey. This was January of last year, shortly after my awakening. Or no, it was right before my prayer. And what happened was I was led to this particular psychic. I ended up looking her up online and went to one of her books on Amazon. And I was looking inside the book, how you can do that without buying the entire book yet. So I was just doing that. And I was listening to a podcast in the background. At the same exact moment I'm reading the word in the book, this word comes through the podcast, an unrelated podcast. It was the Melissa Rivers show, an episode about coronavirus. And the book was like an AMA, Ask Me Anything, about psychic stuff. And that just blew my mind at the exact moment. And not a typical word. It was an unusual word. And people ask me, well, what was the word? I don't remember. It was just so out there. It never happened in my whole life. So then what happens is I do nothing different. I just keep reading and listening. I just think, wow, that's amazing. And so it happens again 5 minutes later.
Wow.
What are the odds?
It's a double
right?
whammy.
There are no odds for that. And that time I remember the word. It was the word parents. which the podcast episode wasn't about that, or the book wasn't about that topic. So that was pretty wild. And so then I decided, okay, I need to do something with this, and not just it's not a hello, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a call to action. So then I ended up doing some stuff that was life changing relating to this particular psychic. Yeah, it's if the listener wants to learn more about this, they haven't heard this story, go to episode 300 of this podcast where I go into more detail about it. So
I'm going to go listen to that.
yeah, I'm curious if you've
Yeah.
had any kind of scenarios like that where it's like, whoa, that is another level of without a doubt.
Yes. Different. This one time I was driving and I was going to go to this little small perfume store. And I'm not really big into perfumes, but I love gardenias. And I thought, I'm going to get some gardenia fragrance. And this is mind blowing. So I pull in, I park, I go in, I'm sampling the different fragrances. I didn't find one that I cared for. I came back out, I got in my car, and on the floor of my car was a gardenia. And that, I still can barely believe myself. It is so intense that I am not even sure that I believe myself, yet it was there. I took a picture of the gardenia. It's mind blowing. It's that kind of thing is so amazing. It really is hard to believe when it happens to you. So when you tell people, they're like, no way, you're making this up, you're crazy. But it's insane. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I used to, early in this journey, I used to say, wow, that's crazy. And then I got corrected.
Yeah.
I was told, that's disrespectful. It's not crazy. This is how the universe works. This is your birthright to be able to receive in this way, to have the synchronicities, to have the without a doubt signs, to have the psychic abilities. That is our birthright. Yeah, it's not
Absolutely.
crazy.
And a lot of people who they don't want to take the step to say, yes, I believe in spirit communications, but they have very intense instincts and gut reactions. And when you ask them, well, what made you decide to do this versus that? Instinct, or my gut told me I should do this versus that. Mm-hmm. And then, I'll say, well, where do you think that gut information is coming from? Where's the instinct coming from? It's coming from somewhere. And then they go, let me think about that. And then the next step, if they do believe, yeah, I think it came from the universe or somewhere. Well, if you believe that, how is it so difficult for you to believe that your loved one can communicate with you? I mean, a miracle is a miracle. So one small miracle, it's not tiny. It opens the door to all the miracles. So if you believe in one miracle, why would you not believe in all the miracles? That's my theory.
I love that. And, I learned recently from Kabbalah something about miracles that I just love. And it's a reframing of what miracles are. And let me just share this with you. A miracle isn't defined as when the impossible becomes possible. In Kabbalah, a miracle is defined as removing the illusionary veils that don't allow us to see the light in every experience and moment.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. I follow Kabbalah. There's a few principles that I do follow. Kabbalah, Course in Miracles. If you look at these pieces of information, there's similarities, and anything true, in my opinion, and Talia has said this, truth is truth. So it's going to be, if this is true, it's going to be the same truth. It might be worded differently because of the language or how it's described, but the truth is the truth. And I think that quote from Kabbalah with the miracles is right on. It's perfect.
Yeah. And another thing about miracles is that you can opt in, you can volunteer to deliver miracles. And then the most amazing things start happening where you get this nudge to go interrupt somebody or go up and talk to them or pull off and stop and check on a stranded motorist, or you do something out of the ordinary from your normal behaviors. And then you just saved the person's life, or you helped them to
Yeah.
save their marriage or whatever. There's a great example in this book called "You Were Born for This" by Bruce Wilkinson, and this is the book is all about how to be God's delivery agent for miracles. And so part of this process is simply asking or volunteering, saying, "Here I am, God, please send me," like Isaiah did in the Bible. He said he was at the feet of God, and he's like, "Here I am, God." It's like a board meeting of angels and archangels and God, and like, who's going to deliver this miracle, and who's doing this, and what. And then there's Isaiah in the middle of their meeting, and saying, "I'm here. Here I am. Please send me. Send me." So I make that request all the time, and it's amazing what shows up. So, anyways, what I was going to say about this is just a quick example from that book. Is a guy attends Bruce Wilkinson's seminar, and then the next day he's on a construction site, and one of the construction workers is telling the guy, like, "Hey, my marriage is a mess," and he starts to kind of dump or unload on that, and the guy's normal behavior would be like, I gotta go, excuse himself, but because he had just gone to the seminar, he knew to give it a shot. Like, give if you're going to be a delivery agent, you have to be open to uncomfortable situations, right? So he stuck it out, and he got a nudge. He got like a psychic intuitive hit that he should blurt out to the guy, "Go home and make your bed." And he did, and the guy's jaw dropped, because he's like, "How did you know that? My wife tells me all the time that the unmade bed is a metaphor for our entire relationship."
Wow.
So I'm going to go home during the break, and I'm going to make the bed before she comes home from work.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. A lot of people I know, when they think of a healer, they think the healer is actually doing the healing. And I don't believe that. I believe that we're conduits from the Creator. We're put in a place, and it seems like it's coming from us, but it's coming through us.
Yeah.
So the things that we pick up to say, or if we're nudged to, touch their shoulder for some reason, that we're the conduit. And sometimes people don't want to know it's the person that you're a conduit. They just want to be healed, but they don't really want to know how. And it's our job as healers to do what we're nudged to do when we're nudged. And there's times when we're not nudged. If I have a friend who, she wants to heal everybody, which I think is great, but you have to look inside and ask, is this something that I'm being told to do? Or am I just running around doing things because I think I'm so great and I want to heal everybody? So you have to have a feeling, get the wisdom and the information, and know that it's coming from the right place.
Yeah.
And then it flows through you.
Yeah, because spiritual ego is a real thing, and that there were some painful lessons regarding that I got last year, and I still get, because I think I'm so special. I mean, nobody is more important than you, and you're no more important than anyone else. We're all equally important, right? And so to think of yourself as special, like, oh, I've got this really amazing ability or whatever, and I got the inside scoop on things. Well, that's a dangerous place to be.
It's dangerous. You're walking the edge of light versus dark, and also you could be cut off. The Creator could go, you're using this for the wrong reasons. Boom, we're taking this away. We're closing your door. It'll, do some work. Maybe we'll open it again. Something like that. It's interesting when you said spiritual ego. My spiritual teacher, when he was a young boy, he was walking a path, the physical path, and he came across an Indian spirit, and they had a conversation. And the spirit said, "I want you to do this and this. Try that, and I think it will help you with whatever the question was." Then a couple weeks go by, And my teacher as a boy didn't see the Indian spirit for that whole time. And he asked his teacher, the spirit, he's missing. He's not coming back to me. And his teacher said, well, did you do what he said? Did you do what he asked you to do? No. Well, why is he going to give you more information if you're blowing him off? And so to ask and not to follow through, that's kind of arrogant. It's like, I just want these answers. I'm not going to do anything with them, but I want them. So if you are learning and feeling, think about it and follow through and appreciate. I mean, you have to appreciate, acknowledge and appreciate.
Yeah.
In fact, you have to appreciate everything in the universe.
Yeah. Even the challenges, even the stuff that we didn't want.
Yeah, we didn't want them in this life, but our soul came for those purposes that's what I believe, to get through those challenges. It's a Kabbalistic thing. You push through those lessons.
Yeah. And soul contracts are real, and those are commitments, agreements, oaths that we made prior to incarnating, and we knew that we were going to sign up for a devastating financial situation, or for a health challenge, or close family member dying, or whatever it was. We knew it ahead of time, but the spiritual amnesia keeps us from knowing what that soul contract was that we agreed to. So if we communicate with the other side from, with divine and sacred beings and our loved ones, not with, those mischievous dark entities, but the light, and we get confirmations of what our soul contracts were, what our soul mission is, what our tikkun is, another Kabbalistic concept.
Right.
The soul corrections we're meant to achieve or address in this lifetime. Like all those things you can get confirmations on, you can get guidance on. You're not on this journey alone. You have a huge spiritual support team. It's incredible. We just don't see it, and we don't have the memory of it. So I'm curious if you have a sense for how big your spiritual support team is.
Yes, I do. I don't have a ton of individual spirits in my support team that I know about, but I have very strong spirits. So I have the few that I have that I'm in contact with are very, very powerful with me. My daughter, her father, my grandmother, my archangels. Yes. And I've learned through these 14 years that, and most of it was between my daughter's words and Kabbalah, that the hardships that I've lived through, meaning basically my daughter dying in the plane crash and with her father, that I knew it was going to be coming in my soul. I mean, that was part of the deal. And there's a lesson there. And what's very odd is that once I realized that I'm here and these hardships are what I'm here for, to go through, to learn how to deal with and to help other people with theirs, it's a very comforting feeling. And it's just like a big, soft, cozy, comfortable blanket. Okay, I can make it through all this, and I can help people get through their issues, because that's what I'm here to do. And I won't have to do it again. If I am doing it and I'm accomplishing it here, my next lessons will be something different.
Right.
Who knows what they are now, but
yeah. So you get to keep the spiritual lessons that you have taken on board and learned. You don't have to keep relearning them. So next lifetime, you've graduated to other things. So like, for example, having some sort of financial catastrophe could be something that you avoid in this lifetime, because you've already learned the lessons from that in a previous lifetime, and you've graduated.
Exactly. You've gone up your ladder rings. Now, I'm actually looking forward to staying once I get there, having learned my lessons and just hanging out with my loved ones. But whatever lessons I have left for the next few times around, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So you
It's so
mentioned
interesting.
archangels as part of the communication. Now, what I've recently come to understand is that archangels have a legion of angels that are kind of speaking as one. So when you talk to Archangel
Mm-hmm.
Michael and you hear him respond, that's him plus legions of other angels speaking in unison. And so when you ask for assistance from Archangel Michael and you get that assistance, know that it's not just Archangel Michael. It's like, think of it kind of like a swarm or um,
Mm-hmm.
what's it called? A murmur, where you have these uh, huge flock of birds that all move in unison.
Oh, that's amazing. I don't know what it's called, but it is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's
it's
called
they're
a
connected with the
murmur.
unified field.
Yeah, murmuration. Yeah, it's a murmuration
Oh,
of
okay.
starlings. Murmuration is a huge group of starlings that twist, turn, swoop, and swirl across the sky in beautiful shape-shifting clouds. Yeah,
Those are just mind-blowing. That right there should help people understand that there's so much more we don't understand.
yeah.
And also that everything's connected.
Hmm.
It's nature to me is the storyteller, or nature tells you what you need to know if you're just aware. Whether it's you're walking in nature and so you break through um, emotions or a mess of noise in your head, and then all of a sudden you'll pick up on a really important thought or something you need to do or someone you need to talk to. Being out in nature, it's just, I think it kind of cleans out your filters
Yeah.
and it opens the doors.
Yeah, yeah. There are a few things like that that open up that communication channel. One I already spoke about. So one thought that comes to me about how to maintain or boost that connection is to have purity of thought. This is another Kabbalistic
Mm-hmm.
concept. So purity of thought, word, and deed creates very powerful positive angels. Uh, Another Kabbalistic concept. But then there's the idea of, I think it's pronounced something like Hokdemetza or something like that. And it's another Kabbalistic concept, which is the ability to receive messages and
Mm-hmm.
maintaining purity of thought, not looking at pornography, just being very mindful of what you think about, not thinking about anything lustful or anything that would induce envy or jealousy or anything like that. It really boosts the signal. And yeah, it's just really cool.
And that works with people who believe in affirmations and things like that. It's like if you're thinking this line of thought, you're attracting that back to you.
Yeah.
So keeping the pure thought and bouncing it back if something comes to you, acknowledging it and getting rid of it, and not thinking deep about it, it keeps the what you don't want from coming to you. And what's interesting is with the Kabbalah Center's red string, it's like whether you believe in that the red string is actually pushing something away, protecting you or not. For me, the red string is a reminder. It's like if I'm driving down the street and for some reason, everyone wants to scream at someone who did something stupid on the road. But if I have my red string on, it makes me think, no, I'm not going to go that way. I'm not going to scream, you're a stupid idiot, whatever. I'm not going to do it. So it's a reminder. And I find that it really helps with keeping the negative out of my head.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to keep all negative out of your head. I mean, things happen, but a reminder it's good. It keeps it away so you hopefully don't attract it.
Yes. Yes. I'm not wearing a red string right now, but I many months of the year I'll have the red string on, and it's important. For one lesson I learned, or piece of information about this that I learned recently, was to not use it as a crutch. It isn't
Mm-hmm.
what is protecting me, for example, from the evil eye, etc. It
Mm-hmm.
is, as you say, a reminder. It is boosting the connection, right? And the red string is
Mm-hmm.
actually wrapped around the tomb of Rachel, the matriarch, 7 times, and it is energetically powerful, but it's not a crutch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I give it to, if somebody is interested, I'll wrap it, I'll tie my 7 knots for them. But I'll also tell them that, this is not an energy shield that's going to bounce things off of you. It's basically a reminder.
Yeah.
But I love wearing it.
Yep. Yeah. And also when you're putting those energetic protection boundaries around you, remember to protect your backside, because that's something that I would neglect
Absolutely.
a lot, and thus I get hit by the negative entities, and that was a vulnerable spot for me.
Exactly. Having people, or remembering for yourself, when you're expanding your protection around you, make it a sphere. You're in the middle of a bubble that goes above and goes into the earth behind all around. It's easy to have it be like you're chewing bubble gum and it's a little bubble. Like, here's my protection right here.
Mm-hmm. But
no, everywhere around you, you're floating in a protective sphere. And that's important. And you can put your loved ones in there. You can, whatever your intent is will happen. So I'll protect myself, but then I'll intentionally put all my loved ones in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not know it, but I do it.
Yeah.
And so hopefully it helps.
Yeah. Yeah. I would put so many people in my protective spheres. It got a little out of hand, and I was told from above to tone that down, because I had this kind of weight of the world on my shoulders that I was doing to myself. I was putting into my spheres of protection. I was using the Metatron Prayer of Protection and Abundance channeled by Michelle White Dove, which I'll include in the show notes. I was putting in there all of my loved ones. I was like naming 30 different people.
Right.
And then I was adding to that all of humanity, all of my loved ones, all of my loved ones' loved ones, in case, I missed any people out of the 30 or whatever, included everybody. And then all of the animals, all the plants, Mother Earth. What else was I including? It was just, it was out of hand. And it ended up making me more vulnerable, because I just couldn't support all of that. So now I was guided by one of my spiritual coaches to take a break for about a week from doing those prayers, the Anabacoa prayer, which I do twice a day, and the prayer of protection, Metatron prayer of protection, stopping that for a week, do a reset, let my vessel empty, and then start over again, and not put everybody in there anymore. Just like take care of myself first, put my own oxygen mask on first, and then if I want to add my toddler in there too, or a couple people, but not 30. Right. Not of all of humanity, not the Mother Earth and everybody else. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, you do have to do that. Something that I've been taught from my main spiritual teacher, who his name's Tom Brown. It's Tom Brown Jr.'s Tracker and Wilderness Survival School.
Oh, right.
He has a very spiritual side to it. Amazing. He's an amazing teacher. We do this thing called the empowered prayer. And so that's how most of my protection is given to others, is through that. And it's a prayer that of early warnings, like, please, if there's anything that I need to know in order to keep me or my loved ones away from danger, please give me the information in a way that I understand and can make changes so that we will stay out of harm's way. Something like that. And that's something to say all the time, at least once a day, whenever you think about it. That then hooks you in so that you'll get the instinct. Like, I'll be doing whatever, driving, and I'll have this feeling, okay, turn right. So I'll turn right. I mean, that's just an easy example. Or maybe tell your mom she shouldn't really go to, that trip this weekend, go the following weekend, whatever. If a thought comes, listen, because that's the warning. They're giving you a sign. Go ahead and tell that person. And that prayer has saved me a couple times. I know, one time I was at the airport in line to board a plane, and all of a sudden I started having heart palpitations, and I've never had them. And it was just such a weird feeling. I thought, what is going on? So I stopped and I asked the universe, should I go on this trip? And it was just palpitating. Then I said, I'm not going on this trip. And everything faded away. So I got out of line and I thought, wow, that's huge. I had no idea why. I don't know what the deal was. But the big thing is, it doesn't matter why. You don't have to have it proved out. You just listen, because some reason down the line you needed to not do this or to do this. And that's happened a couple times. And it's one of those, oh my God moments that are just amazing.
Yeah.
Like the gardenia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even just simply getting goosebumps, which I like referring to as angel bumps, that kind of confirmation, like when you shared the empowered prayer, I got angel bumps. I'm like, okay, that's important. That's not just cool information for my listeners. That's for me. I need to implement that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And it is a really great way to protect your outer layer of people that you're not putting in your bubble. Yeah, and it's nice to have a network of your closest friends. And if you all do it, somebody's going to get a hit. Someone's going to feel whatever it is, and you'll all be safe, hopefully.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm curious to hear just for a minute or two what inspired you to write the 3 books, because 2 of them are very huge, and then we'll wrap the interview.
Okay. The first one, The Hummingbirds Don't Fly in the Rain, that is a memoir of my life before my daughter, when I had my daughter, our life together with her dad, and then the crash and what happened, and the search for 3 days, and it was what happened afterwards. That book started out as a way to remember my life with her. When I got home from Panama, I was in Panama for about 5 days because the plane crashed into the volcano in Panama. And so there was a search for days. No one knew where it was. It was on the side of the volcano. I could not remember a thing. And so I just started writing our life together, things that I remember, my life with her and her father, and what happened right before the trip when we did this organizational thing. So I just completely started writing everything. And then it kept flowing into how I raised her, which I think was in a very special way, and then how her relationship was with her father. And then some friends read it and they said, this has a lot of healing qualities, a lot of interesting information. I think you should turn it into a book. And I said, yeah, that's sort of a good idea. So then I went through and I polished it, and there you go. It is a book. The Universe Speaks, a Heavenly Dialogue, that is 100% my daughter speaking from the spirit world to a friend who was able to hear her instantaneously and clearly in her own voice. Now, some people can hear the voices. So he heard her from basically very close to day one. And he was meticulous, and he started writing down what she said to tell me, because the messages started with, tell my mom I'm okay, tell my mom I love her, tell my uncle this. And so he would write everything down. And then he realized that she wanted to keep talking. And so what it is thousands of hours of him writing his questions and her answers and her voice down in a dialogue. And it was so amazing because she would circle around with life lessons and what's it like to transition and how to live authentically and things like that. A lot of lessons that are out there. And she even said, this information isn't new. I'm just putting it out there in a different way because everyone learns in a different way. So then, and I'll say that I had to edit it, but her words and his words are not edited. There's just some things I just didn't put in because it was redundant. What'd you do today for lunch, blah. But that's part of it. Spirits will talk about mundane things because they want to be part of your life. So that's where the Universe Speaks, a Heavenly Dialogue came about. And the first book ended where she said, this book is done. Okay. And then she said, but I'm not done speaking. So then he kept listening. And she said, this is the second book for those that appreciate the first book. And it went deeper. And so then they had 2 large books. But then I went one step further. I combined the books into a Heavenly Dialogue collection, and it was huge. So the print's a little smaller, so the book isn't 3 feet deep, but her messages are great. In fact, I have a couple friends that had never heard a spirit communication. They didn't even really believe it. They're more on the traditional religious side. When they read The Universe Speaks, one of them told me about halfway through, she heard her uncle speaking. And from that point on, she's been open to it, which is mind-blowing.
Amazing.
So that's where those books came from.
Yeah. Well, you've changed lots of lives. I don't know how many, but it feels big to me, just with the books that you've put out there already. And I'm guessing you're not done, that you have another book in you.
I have my book in me, the books of everything I want to tell people, kind of what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
How-tos, how to help yourself. It's not written yet, but I'm gathering those thoughts.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an important book for you to put out there. So don't procrastinate it.
No, and I'm glad you said that, because now that we're in January, it's on my list to start pretty much immediately.
Amazing. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for our listener who wants to follow you and learn more and so forth, where should we send them?
My website, Kimberly Klein, KimberlyKlein, .com, my website. They can contact me with the contact link, send an email if they need to. Lots of information on the website.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, listener.
Thank you.
And have a great week. We'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.